People have often told me the same thing, time and time again: you were the one. The one love that should have lasted. The one love life itself refused to protect. I once thought I could escape it all, live as a carefree bachelor, drift through romances without ever falling too deep. I told myself love was nothing but misery in disguise. On stage, romance dazzles us with its beauty, but behind the curtain, it so often ends in heartbreak. Wealth and fame, no matter how dazzling, cannot shield the human heart from sorrow. 17 African-American R&B legends learned this lesson the hardest way possible. Each one endured the shattering grief of losing a soulmate forever. The stories I'm about to share are not tales of glitz and glamour, but of wounds that never healed. Each narrative carries unbearable pain, each survivor still scarred by loss that time cannot erase. These are not just love stories, they are tragedies carved into the very soul of music history. So before we begin, I urge you to prepare yourself. What you're about to hear may linger with you long after the final note fades. The Godfather of Soul. James Brown. A man who reigned as the undisputed king of soul music, reshaping the sound of America with timeless anthems like Papa's Got a Brand New Bag and I Got You, I Feel Good. His electrifying performances inspired generations of artists, and his influence stretched far beyond the stage. But behind the dazzling spotlight was a life scarred by darkness. Brown's private world was dominated by substance abuse, violent rages, and a cycle of torment inflicted on those closest to him. In 1970, he married Deidre Jenkins. What began as a fairy tale romance soon unraveled into a nightmare. Brown's temper exploded into brutal physical assaults, leaving Deidre hospitalized by 1975. Though his arrest briefly grabbed headlines, public interest quickly faded, and Deidre endured 11 years of fear before finally divorcing him in 1981. The pattern never stopped. In 2001, James wed Tommy Ray Heine. Many believed age might calm his fury. It did not. His drug addiction fueled fresh violence. In 2004, police arrested him for attacking Tommy Ray during a drug-induced rage, pushing her and threatening her with a chair. The story barely made a ripple, and was all but forgotten until his death in 2006. Even in death, the chaos continued. Tommy Ray claimed to be his legal wife, demanding a share of his estate. The Brown family fought back, insisting the marriage was invalid. A bitter legal war and media circus raged for years. James Brown's musical contribution remains monumental, shaping soul, funk, and even hip-hop. But his personal life casts a long shadow. 2 wives bore the brunt of his violent outbursts, their suffering forever staining the legacy of a man whose voice and rhythm changed the world. Ike Turner, the man history remembers less as a rock and roll pioneer and more as the abusive husband who nearly destroyed Tina Turner's life. Celebrated for his groundbreaking hit Rocket 88, often hailed as the first rock and roll record, Ike helped launch Tina's career into superstardom. But behind the music and stage lights lurked a tyrant. Addicted to drugs and consumed by control, he turned their 16-year marriage into a private hell. They married in 1962, but the union quickly unraveled. Ike seized control not just of Tina's career, but of her very existence. He ruled with violence, intimidation, and fear. Each drug-fueled rage became another beating, another scar, physical and emotional. The abuse was relentless. Tina's wounds never had time to heal before new ones were inflicted. In 1968, driven to despair, she attempted suicide by swallowing sleeping pills. She survived, but felt trapped in a nightmare with no escape. Then, in 1976, came the breaking point. After a vicious assault in a Dallas hotel, Tina, bloodied and near death, made her escape. With nothing but 36 cents and a gas card in her pocket, she fled into the night, abandoning her home, her fortune, even her career, all still in Ike's grasp. She fought for freedom in divorce court, which concluded in 1978, leaving her with only one thing: her name. Her body and spirit carried the scars of survival. The world finally learned the truth through her autobiography I, Tina, and the film What's Love Got to Do with It. The revelations shattered Ike Turner's carefully crafted image. His legacy as a musical innovator was eclipsed by his cruelty. He didn't just lose Tina, he lost the respect of the world. Ray Charles. Ray Charles, the genius who gave the world timeless treasures like Georgia on My Mind, lived a life that was as tormented as it was brilliant. On stage, he was a legend, blending soul, blues, and jazz into music that felt eternal. But behind the curtain, his personal life was a storm that never cleared. In 1955, he married de la Beatrice Della Howard, a woman many believed could anchor him. Yet from the start, their marriage was haunted. Charles was already deep in the grip of addiction and womanizing, and fame only magnified his demons. Theirs was not a life of peace, but one of late-night parties, endless tours, and the constant intrusion of drugs and mistresses. Ray fathered 12 children with 10 different women, while Della, the loyal wife, became little more than a shadow in her own home. The cracks turned into chasms. By 1961, when Ray's arrest for drug possession made national headlines, Della was already living in quiet despair. She endured the humiliation of constant phone calls from other women, unexpected visitors at her door, and her husband's unexplained absences that stretched into weeks. The arguments were constant, the betrayals relentless. For more than 2 decades, Della stayed, clinging to a marriage that had long since died. But in 1977, after over 20 years of infidelity and heartbreak, she finally let go. Her decision was not made in anger or even sorrow, only resignation. The man she once loved was gone, lost to his vices. Ray Charles, for all his musical brilliance, lost the one steady presence in his chaotic world. Alone, he spiraled further into drugs and isolation, his genius forever shadowed by the wreckage of the life he left behind.
Etta James.
Etta James, the voice that gave the world the timeless anthem at last, was a powerhouse of raw emotion, unmatched style, and commanding stage presence. She stood as one of R&B's greatest legends. But behind the soaring vocals and iconic performances, her personal life unraveled in shadows. In 1969, she married Artis Mills, the man who vowed to stand beside her through the storms. For a time, it seemed he might be her anchor. But within just a few years, the reality grew harsh. Heroin sank its claws into Etta, and what should have been triumphant tours instead collapsed into cycles of addiction. The dazzling shows audiences adored often hit a body and spirit breaking apart.
Artis stayed.
He bore witness to it all. The highs, the relapses, the hospitals, the arrests. In 1972, when they were caught with drugs, he quietly took the fall, serving time while she battled her demons. By the time he returned, her struggle had only deepened. Some nights, she still lit up the stage with brilliance. Other nights, she was lost entirely to the darkness of her addiction. For Artis, it was like loving 2 different women. The star the world worshipped and the broken soul he tried to save. Their marriage endured, but their love was fractured. He never lost her to divorce or distance, but to the drugs that consumed her. The tabloids chronicled every fall, every arrest, every relapse, every collapse, but they never captured the quiet devastation of a man watching the woman he loved slip further away. Those who knew her best understood the cruel truth. Addiction not only stole Etta James' health and artistry, it stole her one true chance at lasting love. The self-proclaimed king of rock and soul, Solomon Burke, lived a life as explosive off-stage as his music was on it. Behind the velvet voice that gave the world "Cry to Me" was a man tangled in scandal, secrets, and heartbreak. For decades, he was hailed as one of the most influential R&B artists of the 1960s through the 1980s, but his personal life was a storm few could weather. Married to Doris Williams since the 1960s, Burke's vows meant little in the face of his uncontrollable appetite for women. Not 1, not 2, but 21 children came from his countless affairs, most born outside of wedlock. When Solomon openly confessed to this double life and even supported many of his children, the revelation rocked the music industry to its core. For Doris, the marriage became a battlefield. Each betrayal carved deeper wounds, leaving her exhausted, humiliated, and emotionally broken. By the 1980s, she could no longer bear the chaos. She ended the marriage, but not without paying the price: financial hardship and lasting heartache that shadowed her long after. Meanwhile, Solomon continued down his reckless path, seemingly immune to the destruction he left behind. The public was left torn. On one hand, a musical giant whose songs helped define soul music. On the other, a man whose reputation was forever tainted by scandal. In the end, Solomon Burke's name carried 2 legacies, one of soaring talent, and another of relentless chaotic passion that refused to be tamed. Clarence Carter, a marriage undone by alcohol and betrayal. With his unmistakable Southern R&B voice, Carter captured hearts across America. His hit song Patches became a timeless anthem, celebrated for its raw soul and heartfelt emotion. But behind the microphone, his personal life spiraled into chaos. In the 1960s, Carter married Annette, a woman who stood faithfully by his side as his career took flight. At first, their future seemed bright. Yet fame soon cast its darker shadow. Nights of heavy drinking turned into early mornings stumbling home. Tours meant more than music. They became excuses for Carter's sudden disappearances and whispers of infidelity. Within the industry, rumors of his late-night escapades spread like wildfire, while Annette carried the crushing weight of worry and humiliation. At home, arguments ignited like storms, often raging until dawn. Annette found herself trapped in a cycle of betrayal, loneliness, and heartbreak as her husband chased the road and drowned himself in liquor. By the late 1970s, broken and exhausted, she finally chose separation. Divorce was painful, but necessary for her survival. Carter pressed on, still serenading crowds with soulful love ballads, but off-stage, he left behind a wife emotionally scarred and financially devastated. The public never saw this side of him, but inside the music world, the truth was no secret. Clarence Carter's greatest heartbreak wasn't just in his songs, it was in the self-destruction of his own marriage.
Barry White.
Barry White, the legendary R&B icon with the velvet deep voice that made Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe a timeless classic, reigned supreme throughout the 1970s and 80s. His music was pure romance, soulful, tender, and intoxicating. But behind the love songs that defined a generation lay a stormy and painful reality. In 1974, he married Glodian White, and at first, their union appeared picture-perfect. Yet fame's glitter came at a heavy cost. Constant touring, lavish indulgences, and endless recording sessions consumed Barry's life, leaving his wife and children adrift in neglect. Glodian endured not only the ache of loneliness, but also the sting of whispers about Barry's affairs within the music world. As the 1980s unfolded, the cracks grew deeper. What once looked like a fairy tale marriage dissolved into bitterness and heartbreak. Glodian felt trapped in a loveless home, battling betrayal and emotional abandonment. By 1988, she could bear no more and filed for divorce, shattering what had once seemed unshakable. The tabloids pounced, exposing Barry's extravagant lifestyle and rumored infidelities. For fans, the contrast was jarring. The man whose voice had been the soundtrack of love was privately living a life of scandal and excess. His public image as a symbol of romance stood in stark opposition to the chaos at home. Barry White's talent was undeniable, his voice unforgettable. But even he could not escape the destructive weight of fame. He lost his wife, his family fractured, and Glodian carried scars that outlasted the marriage. It remains a haunting reminder, sometimes, the man behind the love songs is fighting battles no melody can heal.
Eddie Levert.
Eddie Levert, the commanding voice behind Love Train, wasn't just an R&B sensation of the 1970s and 80s. He was a man whose soaring career was shadowed by a stormy personal life. In the early 70s, he married Raquel Levert, hoping to build a sanctuary away from the stage lights. But as the OJs climbed to their peak, Eddie's temptations grew. The endless tours, the adoration, the intoxication of fame, one by one, they pulled him into affairs that shattered the very foundation of his marriage. For Raquel, the discovery was more than betrayal. It was a knife to the heart, a deep wound she carried in silence while trying to hold her family together. What began as marital strain soon spiraled into relentless conflict. The man who sang of love and devotion on stage was, behind closed doors, breaking the vows that were supposed to last a lifetime. By the late 1980s, the weight of it all proved unbearable. Raquel filed for divorce, determined to free herself from years of heartbreak. Left to raise their children alone, she shouldered the emotional and financial toll with quiet strength. Meanwhile, whispers of Eddie's infidelity spread through Philadelphia's music scene, tarnishing the polished image of the soulful balladeer. Fans who once saw him as the embodiment of romance now questioned the man behind the microphone. Eddie Levert's story is a stark reminder that no amount of fame, talent, or success can shield someone from the consequences of betrayal. On stage, he sang of love everlasting, but off stage, his choices left scars that fame could never heal. Marvin Gaye, the Motown prince's fall from grace. By 1975, Marvin Gaye's private affairs were no longer private. He openly pursued Janice Hunter, a woman 2 decades younger than his wife, Anna Gordy Gaye. For Anna, Marvin's wife, Berry Gordy's sister, and a pillar of the Motown family, the humiliation was crushing. She wasn't just betrayed as a spouse, she was disgraced in front of the entire music world. Unable to endure the pain, Anna filed for divorce in 1975, finalized in 1977, though the scars never healed. She later admitted to living through unbearable public shame. And the torment didn't stop when the marriage ended. In 1978, Marvin released Here, My Dear, an album born out of their divorce settlement. But instead of closure, the record mocked Anna's suffering, turning her heartbreak into spectacle.
Fans were stunned. The media pounced.
The scandal erupted, sparking criticism on both sides. But it was Anna who carried the deepest wounds. Marvin's betrayal had gone beyond infidelity. He had commercialized her pain, sold it to the world for profit. Once adored as the untouchable prince of Motown, Marvin Gaye now stood tarnished in the eyes of many.
Percy Sledge.
Percy Sledge, the velvet-voiced king of Southern soul who sang of eternal devotion on stage, but lived a far more reckless truth behind closed doors. His soaring ballad, When a Man Loves a Woman, etched his name into music history, turning him into a symbol of romance for millions around the world. Yet the man who gave voice to love's purest vows was, in reality, unraveling the very foundation of his own marriage. By the mid-1960s, Percy was a star. At the peak of his fame, he married Rosalie Singleton, a woman who believed in his promise of forever. But once the spotlight found him, faithfulness vanished. The road became his playground, each tour a carousel of admirers he never turned away. Percy reveled in the adoration, indulging in luxuries he couldn't afford and affairs he never tried to hide. Rosalie knew. At first, she kept her silence, clinging to the hope of preserving her family. That silence shattered in the early 1970s, when one affair too many spilled into the public eye. Arguments, tears, and icy silences replaced the warmth of their home. Night after night, Percy sang of love's devotion to cheering crowds, only to return to a household weighed down by betrayal. Rosalie, worn thin by humiliation and the suffocating role of a ghost in her own marriage, finally broke. By the late 1970s, she walked away, divorcing the man whose voice had once promised her forever, leaving her to raise their children alone with nothing but grief and shame. The world never read these headlines, but whispers followed Percy through the Southern soul community. To those who knew, his greatest hit carried a bitter aftertaste. For them, when a man loves a woman no longer rang as a hymn to devotion. It echoed as a haunting irony, a love song sung by a man who couldn't save his own. The legendary R&B powerhouse Wilson Pickett, a man whose voice electrified the world, lived a life consumed by demons that no stage could hide. His anthem In the Midnight Hour made him a global icon, cementing his place as one of the most unforgettable voices of the 1960s and 70s. But behind the thunderous applause and flashing lights lay a man spiraling into chaos, haunted by addiction, rage, and violence that slowly destroyed everything he loved. Pickett's marriage to Bonnie Charlson in the 1960s began with promise, a union built on hope. Yet fame and alcohol twisted that dream into a nightmare. His drinking darkened his temper, and Bonnie became the victim of his violent outbursts. In 1972, during one of his rages, Pickett attacked her so brutally that she had to be hospitalized. The wounds she carried went far beyond the physical. They carved deep emotional scars that would never fully heal. Year after year, the cycle of abuse and turmoil eroded their marriage. By the late 70s, broken and unable to endure the torment any longer, Bonnie divorced him, leaving behind a union filled with suffering and shattered trust. For her, the trauma remained long after the marriage ended, shaping the rest of her life. Meanwhile, Pickett's downward spiral only intensified. Headlines told of drunken brawls, reckless incidents, and a man who seemed to have lost all control. The vibrant, soulful artist fans once adored was replaced by a shadow of himself, violent, erratic, and consumed by addiction. Wilson Pickett's story stands as both a testament and a warning, that unchecked demons, no matter how hidden by fame or talent, can destroy not only the artist but also the lives of those closest to them. Neo, a love story torn apart by betrayal and scandal. Once celebrated as the voice behind timeless R&B ballads like So Sick, he was admired as a modern symbol of romance. When he married Crystal Renee in 2016, fans believed it was the perfect match, a fairy tale pairing of music and love. But behind the glittering facade, the marriage was rotting from within. Neo's wandering heart couldn't be contained. While publicly devoted to his wife, he was secretly juggling multiple relationships, living a hidden life of infidelity and polygamy. For years, the truth remained buried under the glow of his career. But in 2022, everything unraveled when Crystal stumbled upon proof of his affairs online. The revelation was explosive. Crystal didn't quietly walk away, she exposed him. Her public denunciation turned their private heartbreak into a national spectacle. Neo's carefully crafted image as a romantic leading man collapsed overnight. Fans no longer saw the smooth R&B crooner who sang of love and devotion. Instead, they saw a man living in chaos, trapped in lies of his own making. Their divorce that same year played out under relentless media glare, dragging Neo into the harsh spotlight of public judgment. The scandal scarred Crystal, shattered their family's image, and stripped Neo of much of the respect he once commanded. No longer the man serenading the world with love songs, Neo became a symbol of the darker undercurrents of fame, where reckless choices, betrayal, and broken vows left not only his marriage in ruins but his legacy forever stained. Robert Sylvester Kelly, the voice behind the inspirational anthem I Believe I Can Fly, rose to the very top of the R&B world. His career shimmered with platinum records, sold-out tours, and worldwide acclaim. To the outside world, he looked untouchable, a man who had it all. But behind the glittering stage lights, dark secrets festered. In 1994, the industry was rocked by whispers of Kelly's secret marriage to Aaliyah, his teenage protégé. This wasn't just a controversial union, it was illegal. The marriage was concealed, But when the truth surfaced, Aaliyah's family intervened, the union was annulled, and the young singer carried the scars of betrayal and trauma. As Kelly's fame continued, the darkness only deepened. By the mid-1990s, his relationship with Andrea Kelly marked the beginning of a long nightmare. Andrea endured years of private torment, physical abuse, psychological control, and threats hidden away from the public eye. Her brave testimony in 2005 pulled back the curtain, exposing the cruel reality behind Kelly's carefully crafted image. Their marriage collapsed, ending in a bitter divorce in 2009, but the damage lingered. The accusations didn't stop there. More women stepped forward, each story painting a chilling picture of manipulation and abuse. In 2019, the explosive documentary Surviving R. Kelly ignited global outrage, triggering legal battles and cementing his fall from grace. For decades, the world saw the glamorous facade of a superstar. But behind the music and the fame lay a legacy of pain, secrecy, and scars that could no longer be silenced.
Teddy Pendergrass.
Teddy Pendergrass, the legendary R&B powerhouse behind the timeless hit Love TKO, was more than just a voice, he was an icon. In the 1970s and 80s, his soaring ballads made him the soundtrack of romance for millions. But behind the glitter of fame, his private life carried shadows that fame could not hide. In the early 80s, Teddy married Karen, a union that seemed strong from the outside but hid a storm within. While audiences adored his soulful passion on stage, away from the spotlight he was entangled in a web of affairs. Concert tours and stardom gave him endless temptation, and his magnetic charm often led him astray. The mounting stress of fame, combined with his reckless womanizing, fueled explosive arguments that pushed his marriage to the breaking point. Then came 1982, a year that would forever change his destiny. A devastating car crash left Teddy paralyzed, not only robbing him of his mobility but also peeling back the fragile truth about his marriage. Many whispered that his reckless choices had led him there. Though the couple tried to reconcile, the scars ran too deep. By 2002, Karen could no longer bear the pain of betrayal and conflict, filing for divorce after decades of turmoil. The fallout was brutal. Once celebrated for his music, Teddy now found his legacy tainted by scandal. The media pounced on every affair, every mistake, turning his personal struggles into tabloid fodder. His story remains not just a tale of a star's downfall, but a sobering reminder of how fame can destroy happiness when personal demons are left unchecked. Bobby Brown, from R&B royalty to the man who lost Whitney forever. Robert Beresford Brown, the voice behind My Prerogative, once ruled the late 80s and early 90s R&B scene. His marriage to Whitney Houston in 1992 looked like a dream pairing, the bad boy of New Jack Swing and the golden voice of pop. To the outside world, it seemed like a fairy tale. But behind closed doors, their love story spiraled into one of music's darkest tragedies. For Bobby, fame wasn't just lights and luxury, it was demons waiting at every corner. Drugs, alcohol, and violent outbursts slowly consumed him, dragging Whitney down with him. Their home became a battleground, arguments exploding into chaos, often leaving Whitney bruised both physically and emotionally. In 2003, one infamous altercation left her with visible facial injuries, splashed across headlines for the world to see. The press seized the scandal, but the truth was even more heartbreaking. Bobby's addiction wasn't just destroying his own career, it was pulling Whitney, once America's flawless diva, into the same abyss. Once celebrated as untouchable, she began unraveling before the public's eyes, her health, voice, and spirit battered by the storm at home. By 2006, Whitney had endured enough. She filed for divorce, finalized in 2007, leaving Bobby broken and exposed. He had lost not just his wife, but a woman who would never truly recover from their toxic union. When Whitney was found dead in 2012, the world mourned a legend, but many could not forget the chaos Bobby had set in motion. Their marriage remains one of music's most infamous cautionary tales, a union of love, violence, and addiction that ended in devastation, forever marking Bobby Brown as the man who lost Whitney Houston.
Al Green.
Al Green's story is one of both soulful brilliance and unthinkable tragedy. Known for his silky voice and timeless hits like Let's Stay Together, Green wasn't just an R&B superstar, he was a cultural icon, a symbol of love and sensuality in the 1970s. But behind the spotlight and adoring crowds lay a night of horror that nearly ended his life and forever changed his career. It happened in October 1974, inside his Memphis mansion. Exhausted after a performance, Green was simply trying to relax. No one could have imagined that his own home would soon become the scene of one of music's most chilling tragedies. His girlfriend, Mary Woodson, was a woman torn apart by heartbreak. She loved him deeply, but the pain of his infidelity and refusal to marry her pushed her to a breaking point. While Green was bathing, Woodson quietly moved into the kitchen. She heated a pot of water, boiling, scalding, and moments later stormed into the bathroom, pouring it onto him. The water seared his skin, leaving him with third-degree burns. But the nightmare wasn't over. Woodson then walked upstairs, retrieved his gun, and ended her own life.
The scene was chaos.
Police swarmed the mansion. Reporters descended on Memphis.
America was stunned.
How could one of its most beloved voices nearly be silenced in such a horrific way? The scandal unleashed intense scrutiny on Green, his affairs, his recklessness, his very character. Though he survived, the scars ran far deeper than the burns on his body. Haunted by that night, Green retreated from the spotlight. For years he turned away from soul stardom, seeking redemption in gospel music, trying to make peace with a tragedy that had forever marked his life.
Rick James.
Rick James wasn't just the man behind Super Freak, he was a firestorm of talent and rebellion. But behind the platinum records and wild persona, his private life crashed into darkness. By the early 1990s, heavy drug use sent him into a tailspin, turning his chaos into cruelty. His partner at the time, Tanya and Hijazi, bore the brunt of it. These weren't arguments. They were vicious assaults. In 1993, a kidnapping and beating at a Los Angeles hotel left Tanya with deep physical injuries and scars that lingered long after the headlines faded. The story rocked the industry. The charismatic hitmaker was suddenly a defendant, condemned by the public and facing serious charges. The case ended with prison time, and the collapse of a once illustrious career. Even though Rick and Tanya later reconciled and married, the trauma didn't vanish. The psychological wounds remained, a quiet echo that never stopped. Rick James's legacy is a cautionary tale. Behind the glitter and the grooves, there can be pain people are afraid to name. This wasn't a romance. It was a stark lesson in the cost of addiction and violence, and how fame can't hide the damage done. What do you think about these hard truths? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this story kept you watching and you want more real, unfiltered Hollywood accounts, hit subscribe and turn on notifications.